Hi, and welcome to another episode of Virtual Health Club. I'm your host, Dr. Millie Lytle, and we're in for an exciting treat today. We've got our allergy expert, health coach, Judy DiMaggio here talking about how to substitute foods as you're transitioning to an elimination diet, or if you're becoming more vegetarian or vegan. Judy's going to discuss all of this and give us some demonstrations as well. So I'm just going to hand it right over to Judy, and she's going to take it away. Thanks so much, Judy. How are you?
Hi, Dr. Millie. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. Okay, well, I'm going to be talking today about substituting ingredients if you're allergic, if you are vegan, vegetarian, you have someone in your family who with those issues, or you yourself have those issues. Because I have a lot of food allergies, not so many anymore, but I have them nonetheless. And I've also become vegetarian. So that involves a lot of things, some right across all three, some different. So I'll just go through what is what. People that are vegan, no animal products whatsoever. Some vegans will not eat honey. Vegetarians a little different. They do not eat any meat. Some eat fish, some eat dairy, some eat both. So you have pesco vegetarian for fish, Osco vegetarian for milk, or pesco vegetarian for both. And so we'll factor those in as we go along. So with me, my primary allergies are milk and dairy, and I'm going to talk a lot about substituting those things, plus a few other things as we go along. Okay, so let's share my screen here. So you're going to share, and I'm going to hit my substitutions. Okay, so can you see me? Oh, wait, I'm just talking. Can you hear me, Dr. Millie?
Yes.
Okay, so when we talk about like non-dairy milks and milk products, when I first was diagnosed with allergies, I couldn't get anything in a supermarket, nothing, not even soy milk. I had to go to a health food store. And now a lot of these products are in regular supermarkets. Okay, so let's go over non-dairy milks, which can be used one-on-one. So like nut milks, there's almond cashew. I've even seen macadamia, not in a supermarket. I've seen macadamia in health food stores. Supermarkets have almond cashew. Okay, we also have like soy, almond, coconut, cashew, and hemp. I've seen those in supermarkets. There are variations on these milks. You can get unsweetened, flavored. We'll see chocolate, I'll see vanilla, berry vanilla, low fat. You sometimes can get a combination. You can get, like say, a coconut almond or a coconut soy, that kind of thing. It's incredible the number of these milks that you can get. Hey, if you drink coffee, there are coffee creamers. There's soy, almond, and coconut. One brand called Wildwood actually has no sugar in it, and it's soy-based, but you can get these, again, in supermarkets as well. Okay, cream cheese. You can get cream cheese as a substitute, or sour cream. The brands are Daya and Tofuti. I have not seen cottage cheese yet. Okay, but I'm sure eventually at some point we will see these things. Again, I see these in regular supermarkets. Now, there is non-dairy whipped cream, believe it or not. I've seen soy, rice, and coconut in spray cans. For instance, Ready Whip has a non-dairy, it's primarily coconut in a can. I've seen soy and rice whipped creams in a can, and the brand So Delicious has a frozen coconut whipped cream, which I do not see in supermarkets. It's in health food stores. Now, mind you, this stuff is not cheap. And, you know, if it's just a one-time thing, it's probably not a problem. But actually of the three things in the cans, the whipped cream The frozen whipped cream is actually the cheapest. It's under $5. The other ones are around $5 a piece. That's a lot. Okay, so we also have ice cream. There are tons of non-dairy ice creams in health food stores. Most supermarkets do have some non-dairy ice creams, not much. The one I've seen the most is Tafuti. Okay, but for the most, you might see a rice stream once in a while. And I noticed lately Ben and Jerry's and Haagen-Dazs have a couple of non-dairy ice creams as well. But then again, I'm not seeing that much in regular supermarkets. Your health food stores, you have tons of non-dairy ice creams as an ice cream in a container. You can get a large container, you can get bars, you can get ice cream sandwiches. It's just incredible what you can buy. Now, non-dairy yogurt is showing up a lot in supermarkets. They have regular, they have Greek type. Most of them are soy-based, okay? And I'm seeing so delicious based, coconut-based yogurt in stores. You have to look, because again, not many of them have it. So you have to, actually, you really need to find a health food store to buy the stuff if you happen to need it. Sorbet, that's available all over the place. Italian ices, okay? There are also non-dairy soups. There's a brand called Imagine, and I'm going to show this when I get off of this slide. They're really good soups. They're also pretty much allergen free. And then there's an alternative mayonnaise called Veganese. It's a mayo alternative, egg free, but it has various degrees. Some have soy, some has, but they're all gluten free, dairy free. There's an organic version. They have canola, so it has canola oil or grapeseed oil, which is actually better.
I've typing because we can't see your slides.
You can't see it?
No.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Slassi. So
We see you, Judy.
you can see me. So if I hit share and then I hit this, you still don't see it?
No.
Okay. Interesting. How about this? Can you see that? Okay. I'm still not all that great with all of this. If you need, all right, so I'll just keep going on. I'm going to show. Let's see, stop share. Like, this is Veganese. I don't know if this is showing up backwards or not. I see it backwards, but this is Veganese. This is egg-free. This is the egg-free, dairy-free version. As I said, and you can get one that's soy-free as well. And the soup that I was talking about, the Imagine soup, this particular one has beets, lentils, cranberries, and coconut cream in it. And they're really wonderful. They're organic, vegan, non-dairy, gluten-free, no MSG, no artificial anything. And that's one of the things I recommend for non-dairy. Go back to this. Let me go to my next slide. Now, share. Now, one of the things I wanted to point out is some non-dairy foods contain casein proteins. You got to read the labels. You know, they may say dairy-free, but they're not. Not entirely, because casein is a milk protein. You got to watch it, and same thing with whey. Okay. Now we're going to go. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about cheese. There are dairy cheeses. A company by the name of Daiya, D-A-I-Y-A. They have the non-dairy cream cheese, sour cream. They also have slices. They have shredded, which you can use, again, one-on-one with regular cheese. Follow Your Heart also has slices. That's pretty much what I've seen about the cheeses. Okay, let's see what we got here. Excuse me a little bit because I'm just running around doing all this. Okay. Did anybody have any questions right now? No? Okay. Hold on a second because I'm a little bit confused here. Mm-hmm.
So how do you like that Daiya stuff in flavor? Does it seem to melt like other cheese? I've never tried it, but I've heard about it.
Daiya tastes pretty good, except the only one I'm not crazy about is the Swiss.
Mm-hmm. I have some, I think lots of people don't really like Swiss cheese in general anyway.
Well, I do. It's the
Oh, you do?
I am a big Swiss cheese fan, and that's why I'm disappointed in the alternative Swiss. It just doesn't taste the same.
Would you say the other ones taste the same?
The other ones are pretty good. Like the Parmesan tastes good. All the other cheeses, provolone, they taste pretty good.
I didn't realize they had all these different flavors. That's kind of amazing.
It is. I think I got a little bit lost here with my.
So, I mean, one thing is when you're sharing your screen, we can still see you. So you can just share your screen and you can still show us stuff because we see you, we see both. But now we're not, now we're only seeing you.
You're only seeing me. Okay, because I have to, I don't know what I did here. Now I'm in host attendee and this is not good. Okay. Let me minimize it. See if I can get this to work. I think, I don't know what I did here, but I'm going to keep talking anyway about like the cream cheese and the sour cream are exactly the same texture. Because they're actually soy-based is what they are. So, but you can use them, again, you can use them interchangeably.
There's quite a bit of cashew on the market too now, like cashew cheeses. I see those a lot. Those are good.
Well, I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Cashew cheeses.
Cashew cheeses? Yeah, I haven't tried those. I've tried cashew yogurt.
Yeah, the cashew yogurt. It's everywhere. Yeah. The forager. Yeah, but cashew cheese is really good. I prefer it to the soy-based, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I disconnected myself here somewhere. Because I get posted.
So do you prefer, Dr. Millie, the cashew because of taste or like because of function? I've never tried any of these alternative ones. I'm just wondering.
I mean, personally, I don't like soy-based things. I mean, I like soy, but I don't like soy products.
Yeah, yeah.
And no, the cashew is, I mean, not everybody can have cashews, so it also depends on people's other sensitivities because not everybody can have soy and not everybody can have nuts. But I like the taste of the cashew. Especially the cream cheese, like the soft cheeses, the spreadable cheeses, they're delicious. The cashew, the forager brand is also really good. The yogurt, the kefir, the milk, so delicious. Cashew milk, I like that. I love the cashew.
Yeah, like I said, I've tried it. It's okay. I mean, that's just my personal taste. I'm a big fan of the coconut, but anyway, all right, can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, now let's talk about butter. Okay, so butter, again, it's dairy. And if you're allergic to milk like me, you can't have it. So, but there's lots of things you can have and use in your cooking. There's a dairy-free spread. There's Earth Balance, Spectrum Naturals. I even found a vegan version of I Can't Believe It's Butter. You have to watch it with I Can't Believe It's Butter because some of it has milk in it, so you got to read labels. There's coconut oil spread. Now, for those who can tolerate it, there is goat's milk butter, now, which I only saw in a health food store. I also saw avocado oil spread. This is fairly new. So those are things you can use in place of butter, and you can, if they're all spreads. The thing about the non-dairy spreads is they melt a little quicker than regular butter, so I wouldn't suggest leaving them out too long. Now, in place of a stick of butter, you can use a third a cup of organic canola or coconut oil in baking, a third a cup of olive oil, but not in baking. It's because of I think the smoke point. 1 cup of butter, 2 sticks, you can replace with 3/4 of a cup plus 2 tablespoons of shortening. And there is Spectrum Naturals organic shortening, which is the only one that I recommend. Okay, now we're up to eggs, where if you bake a lot, you may come across, either you or you may be baking for somebody who is sensitive to eggs. I can't eat egg yolks. I can eat egg whites. So I just avoid eggs altogether. So for one, you can even have this for 2 eggs. You can put 3 tablespoons of unsweetened apple sauce or few puree plus a teaspoon of baking powder, a tablespoon of flax meal or chia seeds plus 3 tablespoons of hot water. And you mix this up and let it sit for 5 minutes so it gets real thick. Okay, 1.5 teaspoons of egg replacer, and the brands are Energy, Panariso Foods, or Gran, plus 2 tablespoons of hot water. But check the label for gluten, because some of these egg replacers have gluten in them. Okay, 1 teaspoon of baking powder plus 1.5 tablespoons of water plus a tablespoon and a half of oil, 3 tablespoons of mashed bananas, 4 tablespoons of silken tofu if pureed, and you can get probably the soft version because tofu comes in soft, firm, extra firm, plus 1 teaspoon of baking powder, or 3.5 tablespoons of prepared gelatin. Now, this is not for vegetarians or vegans because that's animal-based. And if you're replacing more than 2 eggs, the integrity of a recipe can change. So for 3 or more, you use silken tofu if soy is tolerated. And egg substitutions add moisture. You may have to increase baking time slightly. And towards the end of my presentation, I'm going to be showing you a cake recipe where we're going to substitute 4 eggs. Okay, now let's go to grains, flours, and starches. All of these are gluten-free grains, flours, and starches. Now, you might notice buckwheat. Buckwheat's not a wheat, so despite its name. So all of these, amaranth, arrowroot, bean starches, buckwheat, cassava, chestnut, chickpea, corn, rice, brown and white, millet, oats, and a lot of oats these days are certified gluten-free because sometimes in the growing or the processing, they get contaminated. So if you have a problem with gluten but not oats, make sure it says gluten-free. Pea, potato, quinoa, sorghum, and soy. Okay. Now these are grains that contain gluten. Spelt, taro, camu, triticale, farro, freekeh, which is a brand new one I've just seen out. Couscous is wheat, so is this thing called seitan. It sort of looks like tofu, but it's not. But they do have gluten in them. Okay, now this is a recipe for a simple gluten-free flour blend. This is what I use, and I use this to make waffles. Because I happen to like waffles, and I'm not crazy about the waffles that are offered. You can buy gluten-free waffles in the frozen section. I just find them very, very light in their texture. I like thick. waffles or dense. So this is what I use, and I mix this flour up with the white rice, sweet rice, potato starch, not potato flour, because there's a difference, tapioca starch, and you can put xanthan or guar gum. I put guar gum because I have a sensitivity to xanthan gum. The reason for the gums is to hold this together, because when you don't have gluten, whatever you're making can fall apart. That's what has to hold it together. So that's a simple one. You can get recipes with all kinds of grains that I just showed you previously. Every supermarket I go into now has all these different flours. And if you don't want to get into all this mixing of different flours, you can buy, there are ones that are one-on-one gluten-free flour, like Bob's Red Mill has a one-on-one gluten flour. You can also buy, you can see my screen, this, which is a pastry flour. So you don't have to go through all this mixing. If you really like to cook, you can get into all these things. This just makes it simple. And then you store this in an airtight container. I keep it in the refrigerator, and I got this recipe from Simply Gluten Free magazine, which is a great resource for those of us with allergies. It's just wonderful. It has recipes, ingredient substitutions. It has a column with a chef that can tell you how to substitute one thing for the other. It's really, really good. Okay, now let's get to like noodles and pasta. Now you may be entertaining somebody or somebody visiting who cannot handle gluten. Okay? Again, gluten-free pasta noodles I'm finding them everywhere. Like I'll just get down to the second line, which is gluten-free. You have corn, quinoa, rice, black bean, pea, red lentil. I even saw green lentil today. You buy it right in a box. Okay, shirataki noodles, which are made of tofu. They look they're a little bit tough in texture, but if you buy a bag of them, these are great for the calorie conscious because there's 20 calories in a whole bag. And you can, you just have to rinse them off, just heat them for a few minutes in boiling water, and it's done, and you can put your sauce on them, and you're ready to go. Okay? Now, you can also make noodles from zucchini, beet, butternut squash. I've seen carrots, or you make them with a spiralizer, or you can buy them pre-made. I mean, it's not the same as like a starch or some kind of pasta noodle, but you can use them as noodles. You can also get a spaghetti squash. You roast the spaghetti squash, and then you scoop out the noodle threads and pull out the seeds, and you can have like a fine noodle dish, which a lot of people do happen to like. Now, there are gluten-free ramen noodles, believe it or not, that I have found in a health food store, and that's the only place I have found them. But most places have brown or white rice noodles. Like if you're making like a stir fry or some kind of like an Asian dish that requires them, most stores have them. I just wanted to make a comment about soba noodles. They're buckwheat, but they're also wheat. I haven't found a gluten-free one yet. It doesn't mean they don't exist. I just haven't found it. Now, the thing about cooking these noodles is cooking times on the packages can vary. If you're making, like, say, if I made a gluten-free dish, I cooked my gluten-free noodles. Usually, you don't cook them as long, because if you cook them too long or as long as a regular pasta, they're just gonna turn into mush. You got to read the labels and cook them. So at this point, I'm going to talk a little bit about cross-contact for people like us with allergies or people with, say, celiac disease. If you're cooking a gluten-free pasta dish for somebody who's allergic or has celiac, you got to cook it in a pot that's totally clean, okay? And cook it separate. I would just completely cook it separate if you're cooking regular pasta for somebody else. Also, if take your colander, if you only have one colander, make sure it's really clean, and drain the non-gluten noodles first. Because cross contact means something that's bad has touched what you're using, and you can't have that with like celiac people can get very sick from just a tiny amount of gluten. And it's just better when people have allergies just to keep all this stuff separate. That's just a tip on that one. Okay, now we get to meat substitutes, which is for those of us who are vegan, vegetarian as well. Now, there are some contain gluten. A lot of these meat substitutes do. And that's the problem I have. So I have to make sure that I get a gluten-free meat substitute. But you can get burgers, hot dogs, sausages, crumbles. Now, I have found one crumble made by Tofurky that it's a chorizo-flavored crumble, and it is gluten-free. Again, I only found this in a health food store. You can use that. The rest of the Tofurky products, I also have corn down there, have gluten in them. Okay, but you know, again, you have to. Most of these things, if not all of them, they will actually say gluten-free on them, which is a big help. So you don't have to read labels. Okay, for instance, I use for myself, I use gluten-free, I use this one, the Franklin Farms Veggie Burger. It's actually mostly mushroom-based, but I can have it. I use Dr. Prager's. Now, these are gluten-free, not all of them are, but they do say it, which is a big help. Okay, things like Bolka burgers have gluten in them, all of them. They said most of them do have gluten. Now you can also buy meatballs. Again, watch for the label. Now there are deli-style meats. Applegate is good because it is gluten and casein free, and it's the only one I have found to be this. The rest of them tend to have gluten. Some of Boar's Head are gluten free as well, which is really helpful if you have that problem. Corn products, basically corn-based, but they do have wheat gluten in them. So you have to, again, look at the label. Now, I recently discovered jackfruit as a meat substitute. Jackfruit is a fruit from India, of all places, and it is part of the mulberry family. What I do when I come across something I have never had, I check the food family, because the thing about foods is they're all parts of families and you could be allergic to anything in them. It's part of the mulberry family. I don't have a problem with mulberry, but it's also part of cherry moya and Osage orange, which are very, shall we say, unusual looking fruits. This past summer, I actually saw an actual Osage orange in the Inwood Hill Forest in northern Manhattan. Big surprise, we never expected that, but we found one there, and it usually doesn't grow there, but it does. Jackfruit, because the jackfruit product that I found is made by the jackfruit company. I can't have it, has turmeric in it, and unfortunately, I have a sensitivity to that, so I can't eat it. So I just happened to pick up this snack. So this is what it looks like. It's a big fruit from India. And it's actually the texture of pulled pork. So, and I actually talked to somebody that tried and they said, yes, it is. But you got to remember, it's a fruit. Okay, so we have tofu, tempeh, which is fermented tofu. You can substitute beans, lentil. Now, bacon, there is what they call like an artificial, or one brand is called fakin' bacon. It's not meat, but it has wheat gluten in it. But again, you can get, there are so many companies that make these things. I just wanted to make like a comment on hot dogs. Light Life makes a tofu pup, which doesn't have gluten in it. That's the only one I could find that didn't. Okay, now nut substitutions. If you don't want nuts at all, I mean, technically you could substitute one nut for another. But if you don't want to use nuts at all, you can use equal amounts of coconut flakes, sunflower seeds, sesame seeds, corn flakes, which I don't know if you want to use corn flakes or not, but it's a suggestion. Crispy rice cereal or crushed pumpkin seeds. To crush these seeds, the best thing to do is to have like a high-powered blender, like a Vitamix or a Ninja, because they can be a bit tough on a regular blender, or a food processor might work. Okay, now other gluten-free products, there's waffles, pancakes, cake, cookies, which are all gluten-free. Some of them are dairy-free. I happen to like, if I eat this stuff, Enjoy Life, because it's free of about 8 different allergens, including milk. Gluten-free cake, cookies, and all-purpose flour blends are sold in a lot of supermarkets, in addition to health food stores. As I said, this has become very widespread, and it's great for us that have these problems. Now, the only brand of frozen things I recommend is Amy's, because it's pretty good, and I find them to be pretty healthy. I'm going to show you something. This is one thing that I eat. Okay, and the thing that's nice about this thing, it's a tofu scramble, which is nice. It's gluten-free and dairy-free. Some of them just say vegan, which is just as good. Her foods come in variations. Light in sodium, gluten-free, dairy-free, gluten-free and dairy-free, and there's a lactose-free. I've seen a lactose-free mac and cheese. She also has pizza. There's gluten-free, dairy-free pizza, light in sodium pizza. Okay, and there's small pizzas and big pizzas. This is, like I said, the only brand. If you happen to be in Sedona, California, Amy happens to have a drive-through where you can get all this stuff, which is pretty neat. Which is not to say other ones aren't good, but these are my favorite and the only ones of this kind of food, frozen food, that I will eat. Now, I recently came across as a snack coconut jerky, which is strictly coconut, no dairy, no gluten. I also came across, if you were going to have some kind of a party, like a tailgate party or one of those kind of sports parties, it's Ian's breaded fish sticks and chicken nuggets, and it's free of 6 different allergens, including milk and gluten. I mean, I don't usually recommend that kind of stuff, but if you wanted to have it for whatever reason as a snack, you could. And these are my favorite crackers. It's called Mary's Gone Crackers. They're vegan, gluten-free, and non-GMO. And they come in various, like herb and onion and garlic, and they're really good. Now, I wanted to caution you about foods that may contain casein, the milk protein. Tuna fish sometimes has it. Sometimes tuna fish has soy. So if you get the more expensive tuna fishes, they will be just tuna fish and water or olive oil and salt. Semi-sweet chocolate. Okay, we will get to chocolate in a minute, but semi-sweet chocolate usually has milk or a lot of milk fat. Hot dogs, spaghetti sauce in jars. I have seen, you have to read labels because I've seen some of them that have milk in them. Lunch meats have them, canned soup sometimes have them. Okay, now we're gonna go for snacks. We already talked about waffles and pancakes. I've seen Food for Life, English muffins. No gluten. It doesn't say dairy-free, but I read the label and I don't see any dairy in it at all. Okay. Donuts. There's a brand called Katz's Donuts, gluten-free, dairy-free, they're kosher. Bread and bagels. Now, bread and bagels are in with the waffles and pancakes and the English muffins in the frozen section. Gluten-free bread. Some of them are dairy-free. One is actually, it's a rice bread, Food for Life rice bread, that also is yeast-free if you have a problem with yeast. And they also make just a rice bread, and it's actually pretty tasty. I've had it. It's really good. It's this brown rice bread, regular and yeast-free. Now, there's a bread called Ezekiel bread, which is just sprouted grain. It's flourless. And I've tried it. It doesn't bother me. But I don't know that I would recommend it for people with celiac because it's still sprouted whole wheat grain. So I'm not sure. Now you can get wraps, pizza dough, tortillas, crackers, cookies, and cake that are all gluten-free. Some of them are dairy-free as well, like the cake I mentioned just down here, cookies. As I said, I recommend Enjoy Life. There's also Pamela's cookies, which are also, they come in variations of what they're free of, but they're all gluten-free. Some are dairy-free. And Paul Newman makes wheat-free, dairy-free sandwich cookie that looks like an Oreo and Fig Newtons. I could eat those because my only problem is wheat. I don't have a problem with gluten. I just eat gluten-free because it's easier. Okay.
Udi's is pretty popular in terms of gluten-free bread. It's made of potato starch, majority potato starch.
Yeah, Udi's is in the frozen section as well. Some supermarkets have it. I'm starting to see more and more of this stuff, but health food stores your best bet. The only problem with health food stores, you may have to travel a little bit to get to one. So yeah, that's thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and just another note about Ezekiel bread. Sprouted wheat is gluten-free, but they're not allowed to label it gluten-free because it does have wheat in it. But you do have to be careful about Food for Life brands because they do add gluten to some of their sprouted wheat breads.
All right, thank you for bringing that up. I've always
didn't know that.
I really didn't know that either because one person told me that who's a holistic nurse. She said you can't eat that bread, but to me, I guess it's a matter of experimenting with. I can eat it and get away with it. I would never. I don't think I'd even give it to somebody with celiac because it's too much of a risk, I think. So I brought this recipe up for German chocolate cake. I got it out of Gluten Free and More magazine only because this particular recipe has 4 eggs in it, and when you start substituting eggs more than 2. Okay, the thing is, as I mentioned earlier, the integrity of the recipe can get changed. When you're baking, these recipes are formulas, and if you start changing eggs and stuff like that, you can end up with pudding. So what this one has, this one has German sweet chalk bar, 48%. I saw one today. It's Ghirardelli. They are 100% cocoa, so which is fine for anybody that has a milk allergy. Now this one has 4 large eggs. The rest of this refers to a gluten flour blend. Cocoa powder is fine because it's cocoa. You make sure that it's a good brand cocoa. It refers to butter or alternate spread. You can substitute them equally. And we'll talk a little bit about sugar and salt in a minute. So what we're going to do with this recipe, I'm just going to refer to this because of the eggs. Okay, so to substitute for 4 eggs, okay, what you're going to do is you reduce your butter of choice to 3/4 of a cup, and you add an additional 1/4 cup of flour blend because I said it affects the moisture in the recipe. Okay, then you combine 4 tablespoons of flax meal, which is this, with 6 tablespoons of hot water and let it sit for 5 minutes to thicken. And you add this to the butter and sugar you beat with a mixer until just combined. Okay, so that's what you would do if you had to substitute 4 eggs, as I would. Just as an aside, if you don't want to be bothered with all this ingredients of making a gluten-free, dairy-free cake, there are mixes. Believe it or not. As I said, this one is a pastry. You can buy something like this. I've even seen Betty Crocker with gluten-free cake mix. You can buy Pamela's. They have brownies, pancakes, vanilla cake, chocolate cake mix. You just buy it and just follow the instructions. But when you admit a lot of eggs like this, it can really mess the recipe up. Okay, and for frosting, You're going to leave out the egg yolks, and you're going to heat it slightly to separate it. What we'll get to, I'm going to talk about frosting a little down the line here. Now, you could make a frosting for this with 2 chops of pecans. That's an option. You don't have to. Half a cup of granulated sugar, brown sugar, evaporated milk, or evaporated coconut milk. Now, I wanted to mention, I forgot to mention this about cream. I've seen coconut milk in a can, not the beverage, that you can use in place of evaporated milk. I've even seen condensed milk made by a company called Let's Go Organic. Okay, that I saw in a health food store. If you want to, what you can do with coconut milk for cream, just as an aside, you can take a can of coconut milk and you put a hole in the bottom, drain out the liquid, and what you're left with is the actual thick coconut, and you can beat that up for whipped cream if you like. Then 3/4 of a cup of spread or non-hydrogenated shortening. Again, the only one I recommend at all is Spectrum's Natural. I don't recommend anything else if you're going to use shortening. Okay, now I want to talk about sugar and salt. The only salts I would recommend are Celtic sea salt and Himalayan pink salt. They have minerals in them. And I was told, actually, I was part of a Gary Null support group once, that Celtic sea salt will not raise your blood pressure. And I will take his word for it. It doesn't mean you can pour it on, but because of the minerals in it, it sort of balances it out. And if you're going to use salt, these are the salts to use. And as far as I know, everybody sells it. They're a little grainy, and you can, if you really want to get them fine, and you can put them in a coffee grinder, or some of them come with a grinder, so you can get them fine. Okay. Now, sugar alternatives. Agave. Agave is a syrup. It actually comes from a cactus, and it's low glycemic. I think it's about 11, and you can use this in place of honey or maple syrup. It's so delicious. Ice cream uses agave as its sweetener, just so you know. I can't handle agave. I'm not allergic to it. It just doesn't like my digestive system, so I have to avoid it. I use brown rice syrup, and here's the brand. This is Lundberg Organic, and it does not have gluten in it. Okay, I use it on my waffles in place of anything else. I happen to like it, and it's not to be put in a cake mix. If you make your own granola or cookies, you can use it, probably because of the heat. Now, coconut sugar you can use one-on-one with regular sugar. That's a lower glycemic sugar as well. It's around 35. So that's a better sugar to use. I've used it completely in place of regular sugar, and it's fine. Stevia, I don't use it for baking because stevia, as it says here, is 30 times sweeter than sugar. I only put it if I have a cup of coffee or tea, because it really is sweet, and you use very, very little of it. If you were going to use it in baking, I would suggest looking for a recipe either out of a stevia baking book or cookbook, because they'll tell you exactly how much to use, because this stuff really is sweet, but it has no calories. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was alcohol, if you're entertaining. Most distilled alcoholic beverages and vinegars, except malt vinegar, are usually gluten-free. Wine is, I suggest sulfite-free wine, organic wine, and there is gluten-free beer. And the key to that is to make sure it says gluten-free, because some are labeled gluten removed, and that could leave a trace. And if you have a problem with gluten, it could bother you. But there is such thing as gluten-free beer. I don't drink alcohol at all, so I couldn't tell you how these things taste. But I do know that they are available. And that is my presentation.
Great, Judy. Thank you.
Yeah,
So,
I know Ciroc is a potato vodka. I've been using that when I've made tinctures.
yes.
So
So no, that's because some vodkas come potato, but you have to again read the labels because everybody is labeling everything today. And I wanted to show you my
There's also quinoa vodka.
what is it?
Quinoa vodka.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, and of course tequila is from agave plant.
See, that's again, I don't drink ale, but I couldn't have that because if it comes from a cactus, cactus and me don't seem to get along.
And then all brown alcohol, of course, has gluten in it. So everything is whiskey, bourbon, brown alcohols all have gluten, just like beers, except for the gluten-free.
Yes. And I just wanted to point out, this is something I discovered recently. This is lava yogurt. And it has coconut, lime, plantains, cassava root, and pili nuts, Pili, that come from the Philippines, Dr. Selassie.
I don't know what they are.
Well, they come from them because one of the things I was going to recommend, if you need a substitute for anything, this is a book to use. Food Substitution Bible, 2nd edition, has 6,500 things in it. So whatever you need, it's got it. Because people from like say different countries have their own ingredients they need to substitute. This book has it in it, and even has like utensil substitutions. Like for instance, if you have a recipe that has that you need an oven-proof pan, you don't have it, it tells you what to do. But it's like you name it, it has it, and you can get this on Amazon. And another thing I forgot to mention was a frosting. If you want to make a frosting that has the powdered sugar, no cornstarch in it, you take a pound of sugar, fine sugar, a quarter teaspoon of cream of tartar, and a quarter teaspoon of salt. And you put in a high-powered blender like a Ninja or a Vitamix, and you blast it for 2 minutes. You will get powdered sugar without cornstarch in it. And if you don't want to do that, there's a brand called Better Batter, I'm sorry, that sells it. And you can get that on Amazon as well. So what I'm going to offer as a result of this class is if anyone would like to contact me with any questions about what I talked about, they need help with a recipe, with, substitutions for vegan, vegetarian, or allergies, I'm offering a free call. Dr. Miller will post my email address. Send me an email. I'll contact you. We'll set up a time to talk on the phone. And that's it.
Great. Thank you so much, Judy. This has been a wonderful and informative episode, and we will send out the replay. And thanks, Dr. Selassie, for tuning in as well. And up next on Health Club, we've got Dr. Selassie talking about what is and how to know if you have endocannabinoid deficiency, and that'll be on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. So we'll see you all there. Thanks again.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.